Somebody was trapped inside the east wing. Zara Coleman stopped walking. The laundry basket pressed against her hip, heavy with bedsheets that smelled like lavender and old money. Her fingers gripped the wicker edges so tight her knuckles ached. The dog was barking again. Not the lazy bark of a bored animal. Not the playful yap of a dog wanting attention. This bark was sharp, angry, desperate, like a warning that had grown teeth and was ready to bite. Ghost stood at the entrance to the east wing, his white fur bristling, his body rigid as a loaded weapon. The Jindo's ears pointed forward like blades. His black eyes fixed on the heavy wooden doors that hadn't opened in 3 years. 3 years since Mrs. Choi died. 3 years since the east wing was sealed. 3 years since anyone was allowed to even clean that part of the mansion. Zara had been working at the Choi estate for exactly 19 days. 19 days of learning which hallways to avoid, which staff members to trust, which questions to never ask. She was the only black woman on a team of 12, and she'd learned fast that invisibility was survival in a house run by the Korean Mafia. But she couldn't be invisible to this. Ghost barked again, the sound ricocheting off the marble walls like a gunshot. Zara flinched. The other staff walked past with their heads down, their eyes fixed on the floor, their feet moving faster. "That dog is possessed," muttered Mrs. Park, the head housekeeper, as she hurried by with a tray of untouched breakfast. 3 weeks of this nonsense. Someone should call a vet. Or a priest, another maid whispered, and nervous laughter followed. But Zara didn't laugh. She watched Ghost throw his body toward the doors, his claws scraping against wood that had turned gray with dust. She watched his muscles tremble with effort. She watched his mouth foam, not from sickness, from stress. 3 weeks of barking. 3 weeks of warning. 3 weeks of nobody listening. If you're new here, welcome to the family. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Now back to the story. Zara set down the laundry basket slowly. Her heart was doing something strange in her chest. Beating too fast, too loud, like it recognized danger before her brain could name it. She'd grown up in West Baltimore, in a neighborhood where you learned to read silence. Where you knew the difference between normal quiet and the kind of quiet that came before gunshots. Where dogs barking at nothing meant something was very wrong. Ghost wasn't barking at nothing. "Hey," Zara said softly, taking a step toward him. "Hey boy, what's wrong?" The dog's head whipped toward her. For 1 second, the barking stopped. The silence that followed was so sudden, so complete, that Zara's skin prickled with goosebumps. Ghost stared at her. His eyes were not playful, not confused. They were urgent, pleading. Then he barked once. A single sharp sound. "Come." Zara's mouth went dry. She looked around. The hallway was empty now. The other staff had scattered like roaches from light, eager to be anywhere but near the dog and the sealed wing and whatever curse they believed lived inside. Zara should have walked away too. She should have picked up her laundry basket and finished her rounds and kept her head down like the agency had told her. You're there to work, not to ask questions. Rich people have secrets. That's not your business. But her feet moved forward instead of back. 1 step. 2 steps. 3. Ghost watched her approach. His tail didn't wag. His body didn't relax. But something in his posture shifted, like he'd been waiting for someone, anyone, to finally pay attention. Zara stopped in front of the east wing doors. Up close, she could see the details she'd missed from a distance. The heavy iron lock, rusted but solid. The dust thick as fur along the doorframe. The scratches near the bottom, old scratches, like someone had tried to claw their way out. Or something had tried to claw its way in. Her hand trembled as she pressed her palm against the wood. Cold. The door was cold, even though the rest of the mansion was warm. Ghost whimpered. Zara leaned closer, pressing her ear to the crack between the double doors. She held her breath. Listened. At first, nothing. Just the blood rushing in her ears, the distant hum of the mansion's heating system, the tick of a clock somewhere far away. Then, a sound. Faint. So faint she thought she'd imagined it. A breath. A soft, broken breath. Zara's eyes widened. She pressed closer, her cheek flat against the cold wood. The sound came again. Closer now. Clearer. Not a breath. A whisper. Help. Zara's hand flew to her mouth. A scream tried to escape, and she swallowed it back like a stone, her throat burning with the effort. Please. The voice was weak, shattered, like someone who'd been screaming for so long that all they had left were whispers. A woman's voice. Zara stumbled back from the door, her chest heaving, her mind racing. This wasn't possible. The East Wing was empty. Mrs. Choi was dead. Everyone said so. The funeral had been 3 years ago. The whole city had mourned the wife of Choi Min-jun, the white tiger of the Korean underworld. But dead women didn't whisper. Dead women didn't say please. Ghost barked again, louder now, more frantic, like he knew she finally understood. Zara's legs shook. She looked at the dog, then at the door, then down the empty hallway where shadows gathered in corners like they were listening too. What do I do? What the hell do I do? She couldn't call the police. This was a mafia house. Calling the police meant bodies in the river, and one of those bodies would be hers. She couldn't tell the other staff. They'd been here for years. If someone was locked in the East Wing, they either knew and didn't care, or they'd been trained not to see. She couldn't tell Mr. Choi. He was the head of this house. If someone was imprisoned in his East Wing, he either ordered it or allowed it. But she couldn't walk away. Not now. Not after hearing that voice. Zara looked at Ghost. The dog looked back at her, and something passed between them, an understanding that didn't need words. I hear you, she thought. I finally hear you. Ghost's tail moved once. Just once. Zara took a deep breath, picked up her laundry basket, and walked away from the East Wing with her head down and her hands steady. But her mind was already racing. 19 days in this house. 19 days of silence. It was time to start listening. That night, Zara couldn't sleep. She lay in her small room in the servants' quarters, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe around her. The Choi estate was never truly quiet. Pipes groaned. Floors creaked. Somewhere deep in the walls, something hummed like a heartbeat. But beneath all that noise, Zara kept hearing the whisper. Help. Please. She turned onto her side, pressing her pillow against her ear, trying to block out the sound in her memory. It didn't work. Who was in that room? How long had she been there? Was she dying? The questions circled like vultures, picking at Zara's peace until there was nothing left but raw, bloody wakefulness. At 3 a.m., she gave up on sleep. She slipped out of bed, pulled on her dark work clothes, and crept into the hallway. The mansion was dim at this hour, lit only by small security lights that cast long shadows across the marble floors. Zara moved like a ghost herself, silent, careful, invisible. She'd learned how to walk without sound in Baltimore, creeping past her mother's bedroom when she came home late, avoiding the floorboards that squeaked, the doors that groaned. Those skills saved her life more than once. They might save another life tonight. She made her way toward the East Wing, her heart pounding so loud, she was sure the security cameras could hear it. The cameras, yes. She'd noticed them during her first week. Small black domes in every corner, watching everything. But she'd also noticed the blind spots. The corner near the linen closet. The alcove by the service stairs. The shadow beneath the giant painting of Mr. Choi's grandfather. Zara moved through the blind spots like water through cracks, staying out of sight, staying invisible. When she reached the East Wing hallway, Ghost was there. The dog lay in front of the doors, his head on his paws, his eyes open and alert. When he saw Zara, his tail thumped once against the floor. Shoo, she whispered. I know. I'm here. Ghost rose to his feet and padded toward her, pressing his nose against her hand. His fur was warm. His breath was steady. In that moment, he felt less like a guard dog and more like an ally. Zara knelt beside him, running her fingers through his white fur. You've been trying to tell everyone, haven't you? For 3 weeks. And nobody listened. Ghost whimpered softly. I'm listening now. She approached the door slowly, her ears straining for any sound from inside. The hallway was silent except for the hum of the heating vents and the distant tick of a clock. Zara pressed her ear to the door again. At first, nothing. Then, a cough. Weak. Vet. The kind of cough that came from lungs that had been breathing bad air for too long. Zara's jaw tightened. She examined the door more carefully. The lock was industrial. Heavy iron, probably custom-made. No way she could pick it without tools and training she didn't have. But the door itself. Zara ran her fingers along the edge of the frame. The wood was old, warped slightly from humidity and age. There was a gap at the bottom, small but visible. She dropped to her knees and pressed her face to the floor, peering through the gap. Darkness. Complete darkness. Then her eyes adjusted. She saw a shape. A figure on the floor. Huddled in a corner. Too thin. Too still. But the chest moved. Up and down. Up and down. Alive. Zara's throat tightened with something between rage and relief. "Hello," she whispered through the gap. "Can you hear me?" Silence. Then movement. The figure shifted. A face turned toward the door, pale, hollow, framed by matted gray hair. Eyes opened. Dark eyes, clouded with confusion and pain. Lips moved. "My name is Zara," she whispered urgently. "I work in the house. I heard you. The dog Ghost, he's been barking at this door for weeks." I listened. The woman stared at her through the gap. For a long moment she didn't speak. Then slowly, painfully, she crawled closer to the door. Her movements were wrong. Stiff. Like her body had forgotten how to work properly. When she reached the gap, her face was inches from Zara's. Up close she looked ancient. But her bone structure, the shape of her eyes, the curve of her lips, Zara's blood ran cold. She'd seen that face before. In the portrait that hung in the main hallway. In the photographs that lined Mr. Choi's private study. In the newspaper clippings framed in the library. Mrs. Choi. The woman who had been dead for 3 years. "Oh my God," Zara breathed. Mrs. Choi's cracked lips moved. Her voice was barely a thread of sound. "My son doesn't know, please." "Your son?" Zara's mind was spinning. "Mr. Choi? Min-yoon." The woman's eyes filled with tears that didn't fall. She was too dehydrated to cry. "They told him I died." Her voice broke. "They put me here. 3 years. Please, please tell him." Footsteps echoed somewhere in the house. Ghost's ears perked up. A low growl rumbled in his throat. Zara's heart slammed against her ribs. "I'll come back," she whispered frantically. "I'll find a way. I promise. Just hold on. Please hold on." Mrs. Choi's hand reached through the gap. Thin fingers, bones visible beneath papery skin. She touched Zara's face. "You listened," she whispered. "Thank you." The footsteps grew louder. Zara pulled back, rose to her feet, and ran. She made it to the linen closet just as a security guard rounded the corner. She pressed herself into the shadows, holding her breath, her pulse pounding in her temples. The guard walked past without seeing her. His footsteps faded down the hall. Zara exhaled slowly, her hands trembling against the shelves. Mrs. Choi was alive. Someone had faked her death. Someone had locked her in that room for 3 years. And Zara was the only one who knew. She thought about the voice on the phone when she'd been hired. The agency representative who'd been so eager to place her. "It's a good family. Excellent pay. Just keep your head down and don't ask questions." She thought about the other staff who walked past Ghost every day without stopping. Who heard the barking and covered their ears. Who'd been trained not to see. She thought about Mr. Choi Min-jun, the most powerful crime boss in the city. A man who could make people disappear. A man whose own mother was rotting in a locked room while he ate breakfast in the dining room below. Did he know? Was he the one who did this? Or was someone else pulling strings? Zara didn't have answers. But she had something more important now. She had a purpose. She slipped out of the linen closet and made her way back to her room, moving through shadows, invisible as always. But inside, something had changed. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a witness. And witnesses had power. If they lived long enough to use it. Zara spent the next 2 days watching. She watched the staff move through the mansion like ghosts themselves. Heads down, mouths closed, eyes seeing nothing. She watched the security guards rotate shifts every 8 hours, their patterns precise as clockwork. She watched the cameras in their black domes, mapping the blind spots in her mind until she could navigate them with her eyes closed. And she watched Choi Min-jun. The master of the house moved like a man carrying invisible weight. He was tall, broad-shouldered, handsome in the way powerful men often were, sharp fox-like eyes. A thin scar across his left cheekbone that spoke of violence survived. He wore burgundy suits that cost more than Zara's yearly salary. And when he walked into a room, the air itself seemed to bow. But there was something else. Something Zara noticed because she'd spent her whole life reading people who didn't want to be read. Choi Min-jun was sad. Not the loud, dramatic sadness that demanded attention. The quiet kind. The kind that lived in the spaces between words, in the moments when he thought no one was watching, in the way his eyes lingered on his mother's portrait in the main hallway. Every morning, he paused in front of that painting. Just for a second. Just long enough for his jaw to tighten and his fingers to curl into fists. Then he walked away. Zara watched this ritual 3 days in a row. And each time, the same question burned in her chest. Does he know? If Minjun had ordered his mother's imprisonment, why would he grieve? Why would he pause at her portrait like a man visiting a grave? But if he didn't know, if someone had done this without his knowledge, then who? And why? The questions multiplied like flies on meat. On the third day, Zara got her first clue. She was polishing silver in the dining room when 2 men entered through the side door. She recognized them immediately, Park Sung-ho and Director Kwon, 2 of Minjun's senior lieutenants. She'd seen them at the house before, always arriving for meetings that happened behind closed doors. They didn't notice her. Servants were furniture to men like them, present but invisible. The East Wing renovation, Park Sung-ho said, his voice low but not low enough. The boss is asking questions again. Director Kwon snorted. Let him ask. The answer is the same. Structural damage. Unsafe. We'll open it when the repairs are complete. That's been the answer for 3 years, Kwon. And it'll be the answer for 3 more if necessary. Zara's hand froze on the silver spoon. Her heart hammered so loud, she was certain they could hear it. Park Sung-ho lowered his voice further. Zara strained to listen. He wants to visit her grave next week. The anniversary. Then let him visit an empty coffin. Director Kwon's laugh was cold. Same as every year. The men moved toward the study, their voices fading into murmurs. Zara stood motionless, the silver spoon clutched in her fist like a weapon. Empty coffin. Let him visit an empty coffin. They knew. Minjun's own lieutenants knew his mother was alive. They were the ones keeping her locked away. They were the ones lying to him, year after year, while he grieved a woman who was rotting 20 feet above his head. But why? What could they possibly gain from imprisoning an old woman? Zara's mind raced through possibilities. Money? Power? Leverage? Mrs. Choi had been the matriarch of the family, the wife of the previous boss before Minjun took over. Maybe she knew something. Maybe she had something. Maybe she was worth more alive and hidden than dead and buried. Whatever the reason, one thing was clear now. Choi Minjun was not the enemy. He was a victim. And Zara was the only person who could tell him the truth. That night, Ghost was waiting for her. The dog sat at his usual post in front of the East Wing doors, but this time his tail wagged when he saw Zara approach. He'd learned her footsteps. He'd learned her scent. He knew she was different from the others. Good boy, Zara whispered, kneeling to scratch behind his ears. I figured it out. I know who's doing this. Ghost whimpered softly, pressing his nose into her palm. Zara approached the gap beneath the door, and lay flat on the cold marble floor. Mrs. Choi, she whispered. It's me. Zar. Silence. Then shuffling. The sound of someone dragging themselves across the floor. Mrs. Choi's face appeared in the gap, hollow and gray, but her eyes were brighter tonight. More alert. You came back, she breathed. I promised I would. 3 years. Mrs. Choi's voice cracked. 3 years and you're the first person who kept a promise. Zara's chest tightened with anger. I need to ask you something. Your son. Does he know you're here? Mrs. Choi's eyes filled with pain so deep Zara felt it in her own bones. No, the old woman whispered. My boy thinks I'm dead. They showed him a body. They held a funeral. He buried an empty coffin and cried over a grave that holds nothing but lies. Who did this to you? Mrs. Choi was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a thread. Park Sung-ho. Director Kwon. Others I don't know. She paused. They came to me 3 years ago, the night before I was supposed to tell Minjun the truth about his father's death. They drugged me. When I woke up, I was here. Zara's breath caught. The truth about his father's death? Mrs. Choi's eyes sharpened despite her weakness. My husband didn't die of a heart attack. He was murdered. Her voice dropped to a whisper. By the same men who now stand at my son's side. They killed the father and imprisoned the mother, so they could control the son. The words landed like bombs in Zara's chest. This wasn't just imprisonment. This was a coup. A silent takeover that had been happening for 3 years while Minjun grieved and trusted and never suspected. I have to tell him, Zara said urgently. I have to find a way to. No. Mrs. Choi's hand shot through the gap, gripping Zara's wrist with surprising strength. Not yet. If you go to him now with no proof, they'll kill you. They'll move me. And my son will never know what happened. Then what do I do? Mrs. Choi's grip tightened. There's a safe. In the library. Behind the painting of the cherry blossoms. The combination is my son's birthday, September 15th, 79. Inside there are documents. Evidence of what they did. I gathered it before they took me. They never found it. Zara memorized the numbers instantly. September 15th, 79. Cherry blossom painting. Library. Get the documents. Make copies. Hide them somewhere they can't reach. And then, Mrs. Choi's voice broke. Then tell my son his mother is alive. Tell him I never stopped loving him. Tell him I'm sorry I couldn't protect him. Tears burned in Zara's eyes. I'll get you out of here. I swear. Mrs. Choi smiled. A ghost of a smile, fragile as paper. You already have, she whispered. You listened. After 3 years of screaming into darkness, someone finally listened. Footsteps echoed in the distance. Ghost's ears perked up, a low growl building in his throat. Zara pulled back from the door, her heart racing. I'll come back, she promised. Tomorrow night. With a plan. She ran. Behind her, Ghost resumed his position in front of the doors. A white sentinel guarding a secret that had waited 3 years to be told. The library was on the first floor, east corner. A room of leather-bound books and heavy furniture that smelled like old paper and expensive cigars. Zara had cleaned it twice since she'd started working at the estate. She knew its layout. She knew its shadows. What she didn't know was how to get inside without being seen. The library was Mr. Choi's private space. Staff weren't allowed in without direct permission, and certainly not at 2 a.m. when the house was supposed to be sleeping. But Zara had a plan. She'd spent all day preparing. Studying the guard rotations. Timing the camera sweeps. Identifying the 3-minute window when the library hallway was completely unwatched. 3 minutes. That's all she had. At 1:57 a.m., Zara slipped out of her room. She moved through the servants' corridors, the narrow passages that ran behind the walls, used for deliveries and discreet service. The passages weren't monitored. They were too cramped, too dusty, too beneath the attention of men who thought in terms of grand entrances and displays of power. But they connected every room in the house, including the library. Zara found the service door and pressed her ear against it. Silence on the other side. She checked her watch, 1:59 a.m. The camera would sweep away from the library entrance in 30 seconds. She counted. 29. 28. 27. Her palms were slick with sweat. 15. 14. 13. She gripped the door handle. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. She moved. The library was dark, lit only by moonlight streaming through tall windows. Zara didn't turn on any lights. She'd memorized the layout during her cleaning shifts. Desk to the left, bookshelves straight ahead, sitting area to the right, and the painting of the cherry blossoms on the far wall. She crossed the room quickly, her soft-soled shoes silent on the Persian rug. The painting loomed above her. A beautiful image of pink blossoms against a stormy sky, framed in gold. Zara reached up and lifted the edge of the frame. It swung outward on hidden hinges, revealing a small wall safe. Her fingers trembled as she spun the dial. September 15th, 79. Click. The safe opened. Inside there were 3 items. A thick manila envelope, a small black ledger, and a flash drive. Zara grabbed all 3 and stuffed them into the waistband of her pants, pulling her shirt down to cover them. She closed the safe. Replaced the painting. Stepped back. 2 minutes and 40 seconds. She had 20 seconds to get back to the service corridor. Zara turned toward the door. And froze. A figure stood in the shadows near the entrance. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Wearing a silk robe over pajamas. Shui Minyun. Zara's heart stopped. For a long, terrible moment, neither of them moved. The moonlight caught the scar on his cheekbone, the sharp angles of his face, the dangerous stillness in his fox-like eyes. Who are you? His voice was quiet, controlled. The voice of a man who had ordered deaths and slept soundly after. Zara's mouth opened, but no sound came out. You're the new maid. He stepped closer, and Zara saw his eyes flick to her midsection, to the bulge of documents hidden under her shirt. What are you doing in my library at 2 o'clock in the morning? Lie. She should lie. Make up an excuse. Say she heard a noise. Say she was lost. But the words that came out of her mouth weren't lies. Your mother is alive. Minjun went completely still. What did you say? Mrs. Choi. Zara's voice shook, but she forced the words out. She's alive. She's locked in the East Wing. She's been there for 3 years. The funeral was fake. The coffin was empty. Park Sung-ho and Director Kwon, they're the ones who did it. Minjun's face didn't change. Not a flicker of emotion crossed his features. But his hands. His hands curled into fists so tight that Zara could see the tendons straining beneath his skin. That's impossible, he said. His voice was ice. I buried my mother. I watched them lower her coffin into the ground. You buried a lie. Zara reached under her shirt and pulled out the manila envelope. This is proof. Your mother hid it before they took her. She told me where to find it. She told me, her voice cracked. She told me to tell you she never stopped loving you. Minjun stared at the envelope like it was a grenade. For 10 agonizing seconds, he didn't move. Then he stepped forward and snatched it from her hands. He tore it open. Documents spilled out. Photographs, financial records, medical reports. His eyes scanned them rapidly, his jaw tightening with each page. Zara watched his face transform. The control cracked first. Then the composure. Then the mask he'd been wearing for 3 years. The mask of a man who had accepted his grief and moved on. Underneath was something raw. Something wounded. Something dangerous. 3 years, he whispered. His voice sounded like broken glass. 3 years she's been 20 feet above my bedroom, and I didn't, he couldn't finish. You didn't know. Zara's voice was gentle but firm. They made sure you didn't know. They played you, Mr. Choi. They killed your father and imprisoned your mother, and let you grieve while they ran your empire behind your back. Minjun's eyes lifted from the documents. When he looked at her, Zara saw something she didn't expect. Tears. Not falling. Not yet. But there, glistening in the eyes of the most feared man in the city. Who are you? He asked again. But the question was different this time. Softer. I'm just a maid, Zara said honestly. But I heard your mother's voice. I heard her begging for help. And I couldn't walk away. The dog. Minun's voice cracks. Ghost has been barking at that door for weeks. I thought he missed her. I didn't think. He was trying to tell you. Everyone heard him. No one listened. Zara swallowed hard. I listened. Minjun pressed his hand over his eyes. His shoulders shook once, just once, with a grief too big to contain. When he lowered his hand, his face had changed. The tears were gone. In their place was something cold. Something lethal. Park Sung-ho, he said quietly. Director Kwon. You're certain? Your mother named them herself. And I heard them talking today. They know exactly where she is. They've been lying to you about the East Wing for 3 years. Minun nodded slowly. Then he walked to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a gun. Zara's stomach dropped. Mr. Choi. Stay here. His voice was calm now. Terrifyingly calm. Don't move. Don't speak to anyone. When this is over, I'll find you. What are you going to do? He looked at her over his shoulder. The moonlight caught his scar, his jaw, the burning fury in his fox-like eyes. I'm going to save my mother, he said. And then I'm going to kill everyone who touched her. He walked out of the library. Zara stood alone in the darkness, her heart pounding, the weight of what she'd just unleashed settling over her like a storm. Somewhere in the house, Ghost began to bark. This time, everyone would listen. The gunshot came at 2:17 a.m. Zara heard it from the library. A sharp crack that split the silence like a bone breaking. Then another. Then shouting, voices colliding in Korean. Words she couldn't understand but didn't need to. War had started. She pressed herself against the wall, her heart slamming against her ribs. The documents were still clutched in her hands. The ledger, the flash drive, the photographs that proved everything. Evidence that men would kill to destroy. Hide them, her instincts screamed. Hide them somewhere they can't reach. Zara moved fast. She scanned the library, her eyes landing on a loose floorboard near the window. She'd noticed it during cleaning, the way it creaked differently from the others. She dropped to her knees, pried it up with her fingernails, and stuffed the ledger and flash drive into the hollow space beneath. The manila envelope she kept. Minjun might need it. More gunshots. Closer now. Then a sound that made Zara's blood freeze, a woman's scream. High, thin, terrified. Mrs. Choi. Zara was moving before her brain caught up. She burst out of the library and ran toward the east wing, ignoring every instinct that told her to hide, to flee, to survive. The hallway was chaos. 2 guards lay on the floor, blood pooling beneath them. A third was slumped against the wall, groaning, clutching his shoulder. Shell casings glittered on the marble like scattered teeth. And at the end of the hall, in front of the east wing doors, Choi Minjun stood with his gun raised, his burgundy robe splattered with blood that wasn't his. The heavy iron lock on the doors had been shot off. The wood was splintered. The doors hung open. But Minjun wasn't moving. He was frozen, staring into the darkness of the east wing, his chest heaving, his gun hand trembling. Zara ran toward him. Mr. Choi. Don't. His voice was wrecked. Don't come closer. But Zara didn't stop. She reached the doorway and looked inside. The smell hit her first. Stale air, human waste, the sour reek of sickness and despair. Then her eyes adjusted to the darkness. Mrs. Choi lay on the floor. She was even thinner than Zara remembered, a skeleton wrapped in papery skin, dressed in the same clothes she'd been wearing when they took her 3 years ago. Her gray hair spread around her head like a halo of cobwebs. Her eyes were closed, but her chest was moving. Barely. Just barely. Yama. Minjun's voice cracked on the word. Mother. He dropped to his knees beside her, the gun clattering to the floor. His hands hovered over her body like he was afraid to touch her, afraid she would shatter. Yama, I'm here. Tears streamed down his face now, uncontrolled, unstoppable. I'm here. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't. Mrs. Choi's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, she didn't seem to recognize him. Her gaze was cloudy, unfocused, lost in whatever hell she'd been living for 3 years. Then clarity returned. Minhyun. Her voice was a thread of sound. My boy. Minhyun Polk. He gathered her into his arms, cradling her against his chest like she weighed nothing. Because she did. She weighed almost nothing. 3 years of starvation and isolation had stolen everything but her breath. I'm getting you out, he choked. I'm getting you out right now. You're safe. I promise you're safe. Mrs. Choi's hand lifted slowly, trembling, and touched his face. You came, she whispered. I knew you would. I never stopped believing. Zara stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her own face. She'd seen a lot of pain in her life. She'd seen grief and loss and betrayal. But watching this, watching a son hold the mother he thought was dead, watching 3 years of lies crumble into dust, this was something else. This was a wound being reopened so it could finally heal. We need to move. Zara's voice cut through the moment, sharp and urgent. The gunshots, someone will have heard. If Park Sung-ho or Kwon have people still loyal to them. Minjun's head snapped up. The grief in his eyes hardened into something lethal. Park Sung-ho is dead, he said flatly. I put 2 bullets in his chest 5 minutes ago. And Kwon? Minhyun is Jotaitsent. Gone. He wasn't in his quarters. He ran. Zara's stomach dropped. Then he knows. He knows you found out. He'll be coming back with reinforcements, or he'll be destroying evidence, or he'll be trying to kill the only witness who can connect him to this. Minjun's eyes locked onto Zara's face. You. The word landed like a punch. Of course. Zara was the one who'd discovered the truth. She was the one who'd told Minjun. If Kwon wanted to bury this, if he wanted any chance of spinning a story, claiming innocence, blaming someone else, he had to silence her. We need to get your mother to a hospital, Zara said, forcing her voice to stay steady. And we need to do it now before Kwon regroups. Minhyun Notic. He lifted Mrs. Choi in his arms and stood, his face set in stone. Follow me, he said. Stay close. Don't stop for anything. They moved through the mansion like ghosts. The hallways were empty now. The loyal guards were either dead or hiding. and the disloyal ones had fled with Quan. Zara kept her eyes on the shadows, her ears straining for any sound of movement. Ghost appeared at the end of the corridor, his white fur bright in the darkness. When he saw Mrs. Choi in Minjun's arms, the dog let out a sound Zara had never heard before, a whine of pure joy. "Good boy," Minjun whispered as they passed. "Good boy. You tried to tell me." Ghost fell into step beside them, his body tense, his eyes scanning for threats. They reached the garage. 3 black SUVs sat in the darkness, keys hanging on hooks by the door. Minjun grabbed a set and handed Mrs. Choi to Zara. "Hold her," he ordered. Gently. Zara took the old woman in her arms. She was so light, so fragile, like holding a bird made of paper and breath. Mrs. Choi's eyes found Zara's face. "You," she whispered. "You kept your promise. I told you I would. My son is lucky." Mrs. Choi's cracked lips curved into the ghost of a smile. "Lucky to have someone who listens." Minjun opened the SUV's back door. Zara climbed in first, still holding Mrs. Choi, and settled her gently across the seat. Ghost jumped in beside them, pressing his body against the old woman's legs like he was trying to keep her warm. Minjun slid into the driver's seat and started the engine. The garage door opened. Outside, the night was black and empty. No sirens. No headlights. No sign of Quan or his men. But Zara knew better than to trust the silence. Silence was where danger hid. "Which hospital?" she asked. "Not a hospital." Minjun's voice was grim. "I have a private doctor. Someone I trust. The fewer people who know about this, the better." "You think Quan has people at the hospitals?" "I think Quan has people everywhere." Minjun's hands tightened on the steering wheel. 3 years. He's had 3 years to build a network while I grieved and trusted and played the fool. "You're not a fool." Zara's voice was firm. "You're a son who loved his mother. They used that against you. That's not weakness. That's being human." Minjun was quiet for a long moment. Then so softly she almost missed it. "Thank you." The SUV pulled out of the garage and into the night. Behind them, the Choi estate disappeared into darkness, a house of secrets that had finally been forced into the light. Dr. Yoon's clinic was hidden in the basement of a nondescript building in Koreatown. No sign, no windows, just a steel door and a buzzer that required a specific pattern of rings. Minjun carried his mother inside. Zara followed with Ghost at her heels. The clinic was small but immaculate. White walls, gleaming equipment, the sharp smell of antiseptic. Dr. Yoon was a thin man in his 60s with steady hands and kind eyes that widened when he saw Mrs. Choi. "Impossible," he breathed. "She's been dead for." "She's been imprisoned," Minjun cut in. 3 years. No proper food, no medical care, no sunlight. "I need you to save her." Dr. Yoon recovered quickly. He gestured toward a bed in the corner. "Put her down. Gently." The next hour was a blur of 4 lines and monitors and hushed conversations in Korean that Zara couldn't follow. She sat in the corner with Ghost, watching, waiting, trying to process everything that had happened. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a maid looking for work. Now she was sitting in a mob doctor's clinic at 4 a.m., watching a crime boss cry over his dying mother. Life came at you fast. At some point, Minjun appeared beside her. His robe was still bloodstained. His face was drawn with exhaustion, but his eyes were clear. "She's stable," he said. "Severe malnutrition, dehydration, muscle atrophy. But she'll live." Zara exhaled a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Thank God. Minjun sat down beside her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, "Why did you do it?" Zara looked at him. "Do what?" "Risk your life. Tell me the truth. You could have walked away. You could have pretended you didn't hear anything, collected your paycheck, stayed invisible." His fox-like eyes studied her face. "Why didn't you?" Zara thought about the question. Really thought about it. "I grew up in Baltimore," she said finally. "West Side. The kind of neighborhood where people disappear and nobody asks questions. Where girls get taken and nobody looks. Where screaming doesn't matter because nobody's listening." She paused, her throat tight. "I was 15 when my best friend went missing. Her name was Keisha. I swore I'd never be the person who looked away. The hand of a man who'd built empires and destroyed enemies and carried burdens most people couldn't imagine. Thank you, he said. 2 words, but the way he said them, like they contained everything he couldn't express. Zara squeezed his hand once, then let go. What happens now, she asked. Kwon is still out there. He knows you know. He'll be planning something. Minyones expression hardened. Yes, he will. So what's the plan? First, I secure my mother. Make sure she's protected around the clock. Then I start hunting. His voice dropped to something cold and quiet. Kwon has been building a shadow network inside my organization for 3 years. I need to find out how deep it goes. Who else is loyal to him? Who else knew about my mother and said nothing? That could be a lot of people. It could be everyone. Minyones Jotaitsent. But I'll find them. One by one. And when I do. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Zara shivered. She'd seen violence before. She'd grown up around it. But there was something different about Minjun's anger. Something controlled, patient, lethal. This wasn't hot rage. This was cold calculation. This was a man who would take his time and make sure every single person who'd wronged his mother paid in full. What about me? Zara asked quietly. Kwon knows I'm the one who told you. He'll come for me. Yes. Minjun's eyes met hers. Which is why you're not leaving my side until this is over. I'm not. I'm just a maid. You're the woman who saved my mother's life. Minjun's voice was firm. You're the only person in my entire organization who told me the truth when everyone else lied. That makes you more valuable than anyone else in this city. Zara didn't know what to say to that. Minjun stood up. Dr. Yoon has a guest room upstairs. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start planning. Planning what? His fox-like eyes gleamed in the low light. The end of Director Kwon. Zara couldn't sleep. She lay on the narrow bed in Dr. Yoon's guest room, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing through everything that had happened. 3 weeks ago, new job, new city, new life. Tonight, gunshots, blood, a woman rescued from 3 years of imprisonment, a crime boss crying in her arms. And somewhere out there, a man named Kwon who wanted her dead. Ghost lay at the foot of the bed, his white fur glowing in the darkness. He'd refused to leave her side since they arrived at the clinic. Guard dog instincts, maybe. Or maybe he'd decided she was packed now. Zara reached down and scratched behind his ears. You started all this, she whispered. 3 weeks of barking. 3 weeks of trying to tell everyone. Ghost's tail thumped once against the mattress. What else do you know, boy? What else are you trying to tell us? The dog lifted his head. His dark eyes met hers. And then, he growled. Low. Quiet. The kind of growl that said danger without saying anything at all. Zara sat up instantly, her heart pounding. Ghost was staring at the window. The guest room was on the 2nd floor. The window faced an alley. There was no way anyone could. A shadow moved outside the glass. Zara's breath caught. She slid off the bed silently, pressing herself against the wall beside the window. Ghost followed, his body low, his growl building. The shadow moved again. Closer. Then tap. Top. Top. Someone was knocking on the window. Zara's hand found a lamp on the bedside table. Heavy. Metal base. Better than nothing. I know you're in there. A man's voice, muffled through the glass. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help. Ghost barked once, sharp, warning. Tell the dog to stand down. I have information. About Kwon. About what he's planning. Zara hesitated. Every instinct screamed trap. But something in the voice, something desperate, maybe even scared, made her pause. Who are you? She called through the glass. My name is Han Jae-won. I was Park Sung-ho's assistant. I know everything. And if you don't let me in, we're all going to die. The words hung in the darkness. Ghost's growl faded to a low rumble. Zara made a decision. She crossed to the window and opened it. Han Jae-won was not what Zara expected. He was young, maybe 25, with a soft face and nervous eyes that darted around the room like trapped birds. His suit was expensive but rumpled, like he'd been wearing it for days. His hands trembled as he climbed through the window. Ghost's growl deepened. Easy, Jae-won said, holding up his palms. I'm not armed. Search me if you want. Zara didn't move. Start talking. How did you find me? I followed the SUV from the estate. Jae-won's voice was rushed, panicked. I was hiding in the east garden when the gunshots started. I saw Mr. Choi carry his mother out. I saw you get in the car with them. So you've been watching us for hours. I had to make sure it was safe. Kwon has people everywhere. I couldn't just walk up to the front door. Zara's grip tightened on the lamp. You said you were Park Sung-ho's assistant. That means you worked for the men who imprisoned Mrs. Choi for 3 years. Jae-won flinched like she'd slapped him. I didn't know. His voice cracked. I swear to God I didn't know. Park kept me handling paperwork, logistics, nothing important. I thought Mrs. Choi was dead like everyone else. I thought the East Wing was just storage or something. When did you find out the truth? Jae-won swallowed hard. 6 months ago. I was filing documents in Park's private office when I found a medical report. Nutritional supplements for fluids, sedatives. All being delivered to the estate every month. Addressed to Patient Zero. Zara's stomach turned. Patient Zero. They'd given her a code name like she was an experiment. I started digging, Jae-won continued. Quietly, carefully. And I found, he stopped. His face went pale. Found what? She wasn't the first. The words landed like a hammer. Ghost stopped growling. The room went silent. What do you mean? Zara's voice was barely a whisper. Jae-won reached into his jacket pocket. Ghost tensed, but the young man only pulled out a crumpled photograph. He handed it to Zara. A woman stared back at her. Middle-aged. Korean. Sharp eyes. Elegant features. Her name was Choi Soo-yeon, Jae-won said quietly. Minyonis Ents. His father's younger sister. Zara's blood ran cold. What happened to her? Same thing. Locked in the East Wing. Same room. Jae-won's voice dropped. That was 7 years ago. Before Mrs. Choi. Where is she now? Jae-won didn't answer. He didn't need to. Zara looked at the photograph again. At the woman's face. At the sharp eyes that looked so much like Minjun's. She didn't survive, Zara said flatly. Jae-won shook his head. The records say she died of natural causes after 18 months. But the medical reports I found, he swallowed. Organ failure, malnutrition, dehydration. The same things that almost killed Mrs. Choi. Zara felt sick. This wasn't just a conspiracy to control Minjun. This was a pattern. A system. Someone had been doing this for years. Locking away the women of the Choi family, starving them, silencing them. Why? Zara demanded. What's the point? Why keep them alive at all? Leverage. Jae-won's voice was hollow. Control. As long as they're alive, they can be used. Threatened. Bargained with. The moment they're dead, they're worthless. But Minjun thought his mother was dead. How is that leverage? Not leverage over him. Leverage over each other. Jae-won leaned closer, his voice dropping. Park and Kwon, they didn't trust each other. Mrs. Choi was insurance. If one of them tried to betray the other, the survivor could reveal the truth to Minjun and destroy their rival. Mutuelle assure de destruction. Exactly. But now Park is dead. And Kwon, Jae-won's face twisted with fear. Kwon has nothing left to lose. He's going to burn everything down before he lets Minjun catch him. Zara's mind raced. What's he planning? I don't know the details. But I know he's not running. He's regrouping. Jae-won grabbed her arm, his grip desperate. You have to warn Mr. Choi. Kwon has people inside this clinic. Right now. Watching everything. Zara's heart stopped. Inside the clinic? Who? Before Jae-won could answer, the door burst open. Minjun stood in the doorway, gun raised, his fox-like eyes taking in the scene in a single glance. Zara with a lamp in her hand, ghost bristling, a stranger by the window. Who the hell is this? He says he has information, Zara said quickly. About Kwon. About your aunt. Minjun's face didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes at the word aunt. My aunt died 7 years ago. No. Zara held up the photograph. She was murdered. Same room. Same men. Your mother wasn't the first. Minjun stared at the photograph. For 3 long seconds he didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then his hand began to shake. Suya, he whispered. The name came out like a wound reopening. I was at her funeral. I carried her coffin. Empty, Jae-won said quietly. Just like your mother's. They've been doing this for years, Mr. Choi. Controlling your family by stealing the women you love. Minjun's jaw clenched so tight Zara could see the muscles straining. Who else knows about this? His voice was ice. Kwon Park, but he's dead now. And Jae-won hesitated. Dr. Yoon. The name landed like a bomb. Zara's stomach dropped. The doctor? The one treating your mother right now. Jae-won nodded, his face ashen. He's been providing medical care to the East Wing for 7 years. IVs, sedatives, nutritional supplements. He knew exactly what was happening. He kept them alive just enough to be useful. Minyoon moved. He was out the door before Zara could speak, his footsteps thundering down the stairs. Zara ran after him, Ghost at her heels. They reached the clinic room just as Minjun slammed through the door. Dr. Yoon stood beside Mrs. Choi's bed, a syringe in his hand. Time stopped. The doctor's kind eyes met Minjun's furious gaze. For 1 second, the mask held, the gentle healer, the trusted ally. Then it crumbled. I'm sorry, Dr. Yoon whispered. I had no choice. Minjun raised his gun. What's in the syringe? Dr. Yoon's hand trembled. Potassium chloride. Kwon called 10 minutes ago. He said if I didn't finish it, he'd kill my daughter. Zara's heart clenched. Kwon had leverage everywhere. Everyone was compromised. Everyone was trapped. Put it down, Minjun said quietly. Put it down and step away from my mother. Dr. Yoon's eyes filled with tears. He has my daughter, he repeated. She's only 12. Please understand. I understand. Minjun's voice was cold. I understand that you've been helping them torture my family for 7 years. I understand that you kept my aunt alive in a cage until her body gave out. I understand that you were about to murder my mother while I sat in the next room. He stepped closer. Put it down. The syringe clattered to the floor. Dr. Yoon collapsed against the wall, sobbing. Zara moved past him to Mrs. Choi's bedside. The old woman was still unconscious, her breathing steady, the foredrip flowing clear. She's okay, Zara said. He didn't inject her. Minjun didn't lower his gun. Where is Kwon keeping your daughter? He asked the doctor. Dr. Yoon shook his head. I don't know. He never told me. He just calls and tells me what to do. Then you're useless to me. Minjun's finger tightened on the trigger. Wait. Zara stepped between them. If you kill him, we lose any chance of finding the girl. And we lose any chance of proving what they did. I don't need proof. I need revenge. Your mother needs you alive. Zara's voice was firm. She didn't survive 3 years in that room just to watch her son get executed for murder. Think. Be smart. Use him. Minyoon still works. For 5 agonizing seconds, the gun stayed raised. Then slowly he lowered it. Tie him up, he said to Jae-won. If he moves, shoot him in the knee. Jae-won scrambled to obey. Minjun turned to Zara, his eyes burning with barely controlled rage. You're right, he said quietly. I need to be smart. But when this is over, when I have Kwon in front of me. I know. Zara met his gaze. I won't stop you then. Something shifted in Minjun's expression. Not softness. There was no room for softness anymore. But recognition. Respect. We need to move, he said. Kwon knows we're here. He'll send more people. Where do we go? Minjun's fox-like eyes gleamed in the low light. Somewhere he can't reach. Somewhere I should have gone years ago. He looked at his mother's sleeping face. Home. They left the clinic at 4:47 a.m. Minyoon Tove. Zara sat in the back with Mrs. Choi, who drifted in and out of consciousness. Ghost lay across their feet, his head on Zara's knee, his eyes alert even in rest. Jae-won sat in the passenger seat, still trembling, clutching the documents he'd smuggled from Park's office. Dr. Yoon was left behind, tied to a chair with a guard watching him. Minjun had made calls, trusted men, he said, though Zara wondered how he could trust anyone now. The city slid past the windows. Dark streets. Flickering lights. The occasional taxi carrying someone home from a night they'd rather forget. Where are we going? Zara asked. Busan. Minjun's voice was flat. My grandmother's house. It's been empty since she died, but I kept it maintained. No one knows about it except me. Kwon doesn't know. Kwon knows everything about the empire. But this, Minjun's hands tightened on the wheel. This was never part of the empire. This was family. Real family. Before everything went wrong. Zara looked down at Mrs. Choi. The old woman's eyes were open now, watching her son with an expression Zara couldn't read. Minyoon, Mrs. Shui whispered. Rest, Yama. We're getting you somewhere safe. Listen to me. Her voice was stronger now, still weak but insistent. Kwon isn't the top. He never was. Minjun's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. What do you mean? Your father, when they killed him, Kwon was just a soldier. He didn't have the power to orchestrate something like that. Someone gave him orders. Someone higher. Who? Mrs. Choi's eyes clouded with old pain. I don't know his real name, but your father called him the chairman. He's the one who controls everything. Kwon Park. They were just his hands. His tools. The chairman. Zara felt the conspiracy expand in her mind like a dark flower blooming. This wasn't just two ambitious lieutenants grabbing power. This was a shadow organization. A puppet master pulling strings for years. Why didn't you tell me this before? Minjun's voice was tight. I was going to. The night they took me. Mrs. Choi's voice cracked. I found evidence. Documents. Recordings. I was going to show you everything. But they came first. The evidence, where is it now? Hidden. In the old house. Mrs. Choi's eyes found Zara's face. The safe in the library. You found some of it. But there's more. A second compartment behind the first. The combination is different. Your father's birthday. March 22nd, 51. Zara memorized the numbers instantly. We have to go back, she said. We can't. Minjun's voice was sharp. Kwon will have people watching the estate. It's suicide. Then we send someone else. Who? Everyone in my organization could be compromised. Zara thought fast. Jae-won. He knows the house. He knows where the library is. Jae-won's head whipped around. Me? I can't, I'm not. You said you wanted to help. This is how you help. They'll kill me if they catch me. They'll kill all of us if we don't get that evidence. Zara's voice was steel. You worked for the men who did this. You filed their paperwork. You kept their secrets. This is your chance to make it right. Jae-won's face went through a dozen emotions. Fear, guilt, shame, determination. Finally, he nodded. Okay, he said quietly. I'll do it. Minjun glanced at him in the mirror. If you betray us. I won't. I swear. Jae-won's voice was steady now. I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of pretending I don't see things. I want to be someone who listens for once. Zara caught his eye and nodded once. Welcome to the club. They dropped Jae-won 3 blocks from the Choi estate, just as dawn began to gray the sky. The library. Second compartment. March 22nd, 51, Zara repeated. Get the documents and get out. Don't stop for anything. What if someone's inside? Then you run. Minjun's voice was cold. Don't try to fight. Don't try to be a hero. Just run and call this number. He handed Jae-won a burner phone. I'll come for you. Jae-won pocketed the phone with shaking hands. Good luck, Zara said. He nodded once, then slipped out of the car and disappeared into the morning shadows. They watched him go. He's going to die, Minjun said quietly. Maybe. Zara's voice was soft. But he chose this. He chose to listen. That has to count for something. Minjun was silent for a long moment. Then he put the car in drive and pulled away. The safe house in Busan was a small traditional hanok tucked into the hills above the city. Wooden beams, paper screens, a garden overgrown with wild roses. It smelled like dust and memories. Minjun carried his mother inside and laid her on a futon in the main room. Zara found blankets in a closet and covered her gently. Ghost curled up beside the bed, his white fur bright against the dark wood floor. Mrs. Choi's eyes fluttered open. I remember this place, she whispered. Your grandmother used to make juk in that kitchen. You'd sit on the porch and watch the ships in the harbor. Rest, Yama. I've rested for 3 years. Her voice hardened. I'm tired of resting. I'm tired of being helpless. She reached up and gripped Minjun's hand. Promise me you'll end this. All of it. Kwon. The chairman. everyone who touched our family. I promise. And promise me. Her eyes moved to Zara. Promise me you'll protect her. She saved my life. She's the only reason I'm here. Minjun turned to look at Zara. For a long moment their eyes held. I promise, he said. Mrs. Choi smiled. The first real smile Zara had seen from her. Good, the old woman whispered. Now let me sleep. I have a feeling I'll need my strength for what's coming. She closed her eyes. Within minutes, her breathing steadied into sleep. Zara and Minjun sat in silence, watching the sun rise through the paper screens. What now? Zara asked finally. Now we wait. Minjun's voice was tired. Jae-won will bring the evidence. Then we'll know who the chairman is. And then, his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. His face went white. What is it? Zara asked. Minjun turned the phone toward her. A photograph filled the screen. Jae-won on his knees, blood streaming from a wound on his forehead. Behind him, a man in a black mask held a gun to his temple. And beneath the photo, a message. You took something from me. Now I'm taking something from you. The girl. The maid. Midnight. The old warehouse on Pier 7. Come alone or everyone dies. Zara's blood turned to ice. Ghost lifted his head and growled at the phone, as if he could sense the evil radiating from the screen. It's a trap, Zara said. Of course it's a trap. You can't go alone. I don't have a choice. Minjun's eyes were hollow. He has Jae-won. And he wants you. Then let him have me. No. The word was absolute. Final. I didn't save my mother just to lose you. You barely know me. I know enough. Minjun stood up, his body tense with barely controlled fury. I know you heard my mother when no one else would. I know you risked your life to tell me the truth. I know you're the only person in 3 years who looked at me and saw a man instead of a monster. He turned to face her. I'm not letting Kwon take you. Not tonight. Not ever. Zara's heart pounded. She should argue. She should insist on a better plan. She should. Ghost barked once. Sharp. Urgent. Both of them spun toward the window. Outside, at the edge of the garden, a black car sat idling. It hadn't been there a minute ago. Zara's throat tightened. He found us, she whispered. He already found us. The car door opened. A figure stepped out. Not Kwon. Someone else. An old man. White hair. Elegant suit. A cane in one hand. He looked up at the house and smiled. And Zara knew, without anyone telling her, that she was looking at the chairman. The chairman walked through the garden like he owned it. Maybe he did. Maybe he owned everything. The estate, the empire, the men who'd stolen 3 years of Mrs. Choi's life. Maybe he'd been owning things so long he'd forgotten that some things couldn't be bought. Minjun moved first. He was at the door before Zara could blink, his gun raised, his body blocking the entrance like a human shield. Stop, he commanded. The chairman stopped. His smile didn't waver. He was older than Zara expected, 70 at least, with white hair swept back from a face that had been handsome once. His suit was immaculate. His cane was ebony with a silver handle shaped like a dragon's head. His eyes were the coldest things Zara had ever seen. Min-yoon. The chairman's voice was silk over steel. You look just like your father. Same fire. Same foolishness. Who are you? You don't remember me? I'm Hurt. The old man pressed a weathered hand to his chest in mock pain. I held you when you were 3 days old. I was at your christening. Your father called me Uncle Hyun. Minjun's gun hand trembled. Uncle Hyun died 15 years ago. Uncle Hyun disappeared 15 years ago. There's a difference. The chairman, Hyun, took another step forward. I've been watching you ever since. Guiding you. Protecting you from your own worst impulses. Protecting me? Minjun's voice cracked with rage. You murdered my father. You imprisoned my mother. You killed my aunt. I built you. Hyun's voice sharpened. Everything you are, everything you have, exists because I allowed it. Your father was weak. Sentimental. He would have destroyed the empire with his foolish ideas about legitimacy and reform. I removed him for the good of the family. The good of the family? The empire is the family. The family is the empire. Your father never understood that. Neither did your mother. Hyun's eyes flicked toward the house. Is she inside? Still alive, I assume. Dr. Yoon was always too soft to finish the job properly. Zara felt Mrs. Choi stir behind her. The old woman was awake, listening. You're not getting near her, Zara said. Hyun's gaze shifted to her. Cold. Assessing. Like she was a bug he was deciding whether to crush. The maid. His lips curled. The one who listens. I've heard about you. Kwon was quite upset when you ruined 3 years of careful work. Good. Hyun laughed, a dry, papery sound. I like you, he said. You have fire. Most people in your position would be begging for their lives by now. I'm not most people. No. You're not. Hyun's smile faded. Which is why you're dangerous. Which is why Kwon wanted you dead. Which is why. He raised his cane. The silver dragon's head clicked. Zara saw the barrel too late. The shot cracked through the morning air. But the bullet never reached her. Ghost moved faster than thought. A white blur launching from the doorway, his body slamming into Zara's legs, knocking her sideways. The bullet meant for her chest caught him instead. Ghost yelped. A sound Zara would hear in her nightmares for years, and crumpled to the ground. No. Zara dropped to her knees beside him. Blood seeped from his side, matting his white for crimson. His dark eyes found hers, confused, pained, but still alert. Ghost. Ghost, stay with me. Minyun fight. Once. Twice. 3 times. But Hyun was already moving, faster than a man his age should move, ducking behind a stone lantern as bullets sparked off granite. Kwon. Hyun shouted. Now. The garden exploded with movement. Men emerged from the trees, 5, 6, 7, all armed, all converging on the house. They'd been hiding there the whole time, waiting for the signal. Minyun capsize inside. Now. I can't leave him. Bring him. Move. Zara scooped Ghost into her arms. He was heavy, heavier than she expected, his blood soaking through her shirt. But she held him tight and ran. They made it through the door just as bullets tore through the paper screens. Mrs. Choi was already up, braced against the wall, her eyes blazing with a fury that made her look 30 years younger. The back entrance, she said. Through the kitchen. There's a path down the hill. You can barely walk. I can walk enough. Mrs. Choi grabbed a knife from the kitchen block. I didn't survive 3 years in a cage to die in my mother's house. Move. They moved. The back door led to a narrow stone path that wound down through overgrown gardens. Zara carried Ghost, his blood dripping a trail behind them. Minjun covered their retreat, firing at shadows, buying them seconds. There. Mrs. Choi pointed. A small shed at the bottom of the hill. Old. Weathered. Nearly invisible in the morning mist. They reached it just as shouts erupted above them. Kwon's men had found the path. Minjun yanked open the shed door. Inside was darkness, dust, the smell of old gasoline, and a car. An ancient Hyundai, covered in cobwebs but intact. My mother-in-law's emergency vehicle, Mrs. Choi said. She always said the Japanese might invade again. Paranoid woman. God bless her. Minjun found keys under the visor. The engine coughed, sputtered, then roared to life. They piled in, Mrs. Choi in front, Zara in back with Ghost's head in her lap, and tore out of the shed just as Kwon's men reached the bottom of the hill. Bullets pinged off the trunk. The back window shattered. But Minjun didn't stop. He floored the accelerator and the old car screamed down the mountain road, leaving Busan behind. Ghost was still breathing. Barely. Zara kept pressure on the wound, her hands slick with blood, her voice a constant murmur of reassurance. Stay with me, boy. You saved my life. You don't get to die. That's not how this works. You hear me? Ghost's tail twitched once. The tiniest movement. But it was enough. There's a veterinary clinic in Ulsan, Mrs. Choi said. Dr. Bae. She's trustworthy. She treated your father's hunting dogs years ago. That's an hour away, Zara said. Then we drive fast. Minyun drove fast. The old Hyundai rattled and groaned, but it held together. The mountain roads gave way to highways, and the highways gave way to the outskirts of Ulsan just as the sun climbed fully into the sky. Dr. Bae asked no questions. She took one look at the blood-soaked dog, the blood-soaked woman, and the haunted faces of the people who carried them in, and she simply nodded. Treatment room 3. Now. The surgery took 2 hours. Zara sat in the waiting room, still covered in Ghost's blood, staring at a poster about feline diabetes without seeing it. Mrs. Choi sat beside her, holding her hand. He's going to live, the old woman said quietly. Animals like that, they don't give up easily. He barked at that door for 3 weeks. He wasn't going to stop until someone listened. I almost didn't, Zara whispered. I almost walked past like everyone else. But you didn't. That's what matters. Mrs. Choi squeezed her hand. The world is full of people who almost do the right thing. You actually did it. The door opened. Dr. Bay emerged, stripping off bloody gloves. He'll live, she said. The bullet missed the major organs. He's going to need weeks of recovery, but he's strong. Stubborn. Kept trying to stand up on the table. Zara's breath escaped in a sob. Can I see him? He's sedated, but yes. Go ahead. Zara found Ghost lying on a padded table, his side wrapped in bandages, his eyes closed. His white fur was clean now, someone had washed away the blood, and he looked peaceful. She sat beside him and stroked his head. Good boy, she whispered. Best boy. You saved me. Now rest. Ghost's ear twitched. That was enough. 3 days later, they went back. Not to Busan. That safe house was compromised, burned by Kwan's men hours after they'd escaped. But to Seoul. To the Choi estate. To finish this. Minjun had spent those 3 days making calls, gathering loyalists, separating the traitors from the true believers. The empire was fractured, but not destroyed. Enough men remained who remembered his father, who respected his mother, who wanted justice more than power. They came in force. 20 cars. 40 men. Enough firepower to start a small war. Zara rode in the lead vehicle with Minjun, Mrs. Choi and Ghost, still bandaged, still weak, but refusing to be left behind. The dog sat with his head on Zara's knee, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. You don't have to do this, Minjun said quietly. You've done enough. More than enough. I started this, Zara replied. I'm going to finish it. He didn't argue. The estate was quiet when they arrived. Too quiet. The guards at the gate were gone. The security cameras hung dark and dead. The front door stood open, swinging slightly in the morning breeze. Minyones Jotaitsent. Trap. Maybe. Zara looked at Ghost. What do you think, boy? Ghost's ears perked forward. He sniffed the air. Then he growled. Low. Steady. The kind of growl that said danger ahead, but go anyway. They went. The mansion was empty. Ransacked. Furniture overturned. Paintings slashed, drawers pulled out and dumped. Someone had been looking for something. The evidence, probably. But when they reached the library, Zara's heart sank. The cherry blossom painting hung askew. The safe behind it was open. Empty. No, said Avrith. J1 was supposed to. J1 is dead. The voice came from the shadows. Director Kwan stepped into the light. He looked worse than Zara remembered, unshaven, hollow-eyed, his expensive suit torn and stained. But his gun was steady as he pointed it at Minjun's chest. Your little spy made it to the library, Kwan said. He even found the second compartment. But my men found him first. He smiled, a ghastly expression. He screamed quite a bit at the end. Kept saying he was sorry. Kept saying he just wanted to do the right thing. Zara felt rage rise in her chest like fire. Where's Hyun? Minyoon demented. Gone. Flew out this morning. Private jet. He's probably in Singapore by now, sipping champagne and laughing at all of us. Kwan's smile faded. He left me behind to clean up the mess. Said I'd outlived my usefulness. Said I was too exposed. So you're here to die. I'm here to take you with me. Kwan's finger tightened on the trigger. Your mother. The maid. Everyone who ruined everything. If I'm going down, you're all coming too. Ghost growled louder. Kwan's eyes flicked to the dog. That animal should be dead. He's harder to kill than you think, Zara said. Like me. Kwan laughed, a broken, desperate sound. You know what I don't understand? Why you bothered? You're nobody. A maid. A foreigner. You had no stake in any of this. You could have walked away and lived a perfectly ordinary life. Why did you have to listen? Zara thought about the question. About Keisha, who disappeared when they were 15. About all the girls who vanished and were never found. About Mrs. Choi, whispering help me through a crack in the door. About Ghost, barking for 3 weeks at a house full of people who didn't want to see. Because somebody has to, she said simply. Somebody has to listen. Somebody has to care. And if nobody else will do it, she met Kwan's eyes. Then it has to be me. Kwan stared at her. For a moment. Just a moment. Something human flickered in his eyes. Regret maybe. Or recognition. Then it was gone. Beautiful words, he said. They won't save you. He raised the gun. Ghost moved. Even wounded. Even bandaged. Even weak from days of recovery. The dog launched himself at Kwan with a ferocity that defied physics. His teeth found Kwan's gun hand. Bone crunched. Kwan screamed. The gun went off, wild, harmless, punching a hole in the ceiling. Minjun was on him in seconds, driving him to the ground, fists raining down with years of grief and rage behind each blow. For my father, Minjun snarled. For my aunt. For my mother. For every year you stole from us. Kwan stopped fighting. His body went limp. His eyes rolled back. Minjun stood up, breathing hard, his knuckles bloody. Kwan was still alive barely. His chest rose and fell in shallow, ragged breaths. Don't kill him, Mrs. Choi said quietly. Minjun sponsored her. He deserves to rot in a cell for the rest of his life. He deserves to watch the empire he helped build crumble into nothing. He deserves to die slowly, forgotten, alone. Mrs. Choi's voice was steel. That's worse than a bullet. Trust me. I know. Minjun's hands shook. For a long moment, he stared at Kwan's broken body. Then he stepped back. Call the police, he said. Let them have him. 1 week later, they demolished the East Wing. It was Zara's idea. That room is a grave, she told Minjun. Even if no one died there, part of your mother did. Part of your aunt did. It needs to be destroyed. Completely. So something new can grow. Minjun agreed. They brought in excavators, bulldozers, wrecking balls. The whole estate gathered to watch. Staff guards, even some of the men who'd been loyal to Kwan before they'd learned the truth. Mrs. Choi stood at the front, leaning on her son's arm, watching the walls crumble. Ghost sat beside Zara, his bandages finally removed. A new scar on his side that would never fully fade. How do you feel? Zara asked Mrs. Choi. The old woman was quiet for a long moment. Free, she finally said. For the first time in 3 years. Maybe longer. The last wall fell. Dust rose into the sky like a prayer. And somewhere beneath the rubble, buried forever, were the chains and the darkness and the silence that had held a woman prisoner while the world looked away. That evening, they held a small ceremony. No press. No cameras. Just family. They planted a cherry tree where the East Wing used to stand. One for Suyun, the aunt who hadn't survived. Minjun spoke a few words. Mrs. Choi wept quietly. Zara stood at a respectful distance, feeling like an intruder on private grief. But when it was over, Mrs. Choi walked to her and took her hands. You're family now, the old woman said firmly. Whether you like it or not. You saved my life. You gave my son back his mother. This house is your home for as long as you want it. Zara didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. Ghost's tail wagged. 3 months later, Zara stood on the balcony of the Choi estate, watching the sun set over Seoul. So much had changed. Kwan was in prison, awaiting trial for kidnapping, conspiracy, and accessory to murder. His testimony had led to dozens of arrests across the organization. Men who'd known about the East Wing, men who'd helped maintain it, men who'd chosen silence over conscience. Hyun, the chairman, was still free, somewhere in Asia, protected by money and distance, and the kind of power that didn't answer to laws. But Minjun was hunting him. Slowly. Patiently. The way you hunt something that's been hiding for decades. He'll make a mistake eventually, Minjun had told Zara. Men like him always do. They get arrogant. They get careless. And when he does, I'll be there. Zara believed him. She also believed it would take years. Maybe longer. But that was okay. She had time now. Ghost padded onto the balcony and pressed his nose against her hand. His fur had grown back over the scar, but she could still feel it beneath her fingers, a ridge of raised tissue that would never fully smooth. Hey boy, she said softly. What do you see? Ghost looked out at the city. His ears swiveled, catching sounds Zara couldn't hear. Then he relaxed. Whatever he'd been listening for wasn't there tonight. Footsteps approached behind her. Minjun appeared, 2 cups of tea in his hands. He offered her one without speaking, and they stood together in comfortable silence, watching the lights of Seoul flicker to life. My mother wants to throw you a party, he said finally. A party? To celebrate. She says you're the daughter she never had. A hint of a smile crossed his face. She's already planning the guest list. I'm not really a party person. I told her that. She said she doesn't care. Zara laughed, a real laugh, the kind she hadn't made in months. Your mother is terrifying. Yes. Mignonne Miluku. She is. They drank their tea. The city glittered below them. And for a moment, just a moment, everything felt peaceful. Then Zara noticed something. A car. Black. Parked across the street from the estate gate. It hadn't been there a minute ago. She watched it carefully. The windows were tinted. The engine was off. Nothing moved. But as she stared, the driver's window rolled down, just an inch, and a hand emerged. It waved once. Slowly. Deliberately. Then the window rolled back up, and the car pulled away, disappearing into the Seoul traffic. Zara's heart pounded. Did you see that? She asked. Minjun nodded. His jaw was tight. Hyun. You think it was him? I think it was a message. Minjun's eyes tracked the car until it vanished. He wants us to know he's still watching. That he can reach us whenever he wants. So what do we do? Minjun was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to face her. This woman who'd walked into his house as a stranger and stayed as something more. This woman who'd listened when no one else would. This woman who'd saved his mother, exposed his enemies, and nearly died for a family that wasn't hers. We keep listening, he said quietly. We keep watching. And when he makes his move. Ghost's ears perked up. He looked toward the gate, toward the road where the black car had vanished. And he growled. Low. Patient. Ready. We'll be ready, Zara finished. Minjun nodded. They stood together on the balcony. A crime boss, a maid, and a dog who'd started everything with 3 weeks of barking. The city sprawled beneath them. Beautiful. Dangerous. Full of secrets. And somewhere out there, in the shadows, someone was watching. But for the first time in a long time, Zara wasn't afraid. Because she wasn't alone anymore. And neither was he.